Now, I want you to leave the whole world outside for a moment. Your pillow is as soft as a cloud, and your blanket is like a warm, loving hug wrapping all around you. Feel your body becoming heavy, from your tiny toes all the way up to the tips of your hair. Take a deep breath in through your nose, as if you are smelling the sweetest flower in the world. Now let it out slowly through your mouth, like you are making a candle flame flicker, but not blow out. Hush, hush. In your mind, picture a beautiful emerald green forest. This place is just for you. Is very safe, very quiet, and filled with peace. Imagine a forest so vast and deep that the treetops touch the very edges of the soft, white clouds. In this forest, human footprints have never touched the ground. Only fairy tales and silence live here. The giant plane trees stretch their arms to the sky, and the weeping willows let their branches hang down like long, green silk ribbons. Every morning, the forest wakes up with a gentle sigh. The dew drops on the flowers shine like tiny diamonds fallen from the stars. When a light breeze blows, the trees whisper to see each other to say good morning. Hush, hush. The leaves sing. In the heart of this peaceful world lived our hero, the tiny ant. His black shell shimmered like a polished mirror in the sunlight. That morning, he felt the soft texture of the earth beneath his feet as he stepped out of his cozy home. To him, the forest was a giant ocean. A single daisy was as tall as a skyscraper, and a pine needle was a long, winding road. But the ant felt something different today. His throat felt a little dry, and he dreamed of the cool, refreshing water of the river. I must go to the great silver river, he thought. The river was the most magical place in the forest. Getting there was a long journey for a tiny ant, but he was determined. Pit-pat, pit-pat, his tiny feet made a rhythmic sound on the dried leaves like a soft drum. He walked past giant butterflies with wings of blue, orange, and purple. Everything moved so slowly, so gracefully. As he walked, the distant song of the river reached his ears. Gurgle, splash, gurgle. This sound was the most beautiful lullaby he had ever heard. He moved a little faster, knowing that the cool water would soon soothe his tired spirit. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Finally, the tiny ant reached the bank of the river. The water was so clear that every pebble and every tiny fish at the bottom looked like they were floating in the air. The surface of the water was a perfect mirror, reflecting the white clouds and the golden sun. The ant sat on the damp soil for a moment and watched the beauty. The tiny waves hit the shore with a soft shhhshhh sound, as if the river was kissing the land. The ant was desperate to taste the water, but the riverbank was a bit high. Just then, he saw a thin, bright green blade of grass leaning over the water. It was swaying back and forth like a cradle in the wind. If I climb to the end of this leaf, the ant thought, I can reach down and drink that ice-cold water. He began to climb. The surface of the leaf was smooth and cool. As he climbed higher, the mist from the river brushed against his face. When he reached the very tip, right above the deep water, he stopped. He looked at his own reflection in the water. "Hello, little ant," he whispered to his twin in the ripples. At that very moment, a gentle breeze swept through the forest. It made the willow branches dance and the daisies bow their heads. The thin blade of grass began to sway more violently. The ant held on tight with all his tiny legs. But the wind blew a little harder for just a second. The leaf dipped low, and spray of water made the surface slippery. Suddenly, the ant's feet slid. He didn't even have time to be scared. The world spun for a moment, and plop, he was inside the cool, silver water. The water welcomed him softly. But the current was much stronger than a tiny ant. The river began to carry him away from the shore, gently but firmly, drifting him deeper into the heart of the forest. As the ant drifted in the middle of the river, he looked up at the sky. The blue was so endless, so calm. Being in the water felt like flying, but he knew he needed to reach the land. He kicked his tiny legs, trying to stay afloat. Above the river, on a branch of a giant plane tree, lived the white dove. She was the most peaceful creature in the forest. Her feathers were so white and clean, they looked like they were woven from the clouds themselves. Her eyes were like two shining black pearls. The dove was listening to the song of the river when she noticed a tiny dark spot moving on the water. What could that be, she wondered. She tilted her head and looked closely with her sharp eyes. When she saw it was a tiny ant struggling in the current, her heart filled with love. "That little friend needs help," she whispered. The dove was so graceful that not a single leaf shook as she took flight. Whoosh, whoosh, her wings flapped slowly as she circled the sky. From above, the ant looked so small and delicate. She immediately made a plan. She flew back to the tree and picked the freshest, strongest green leaf. To an ant, this leaf was a giant ship. The dove held the leaf gently in her beak and glided down toward the ant. She flew low enough for him to see her. The ant looked up and saw this giant white cloud hovering over him, and a feeling of safety washed over him. The dove dropped the beautiful green leaf right in front of him. As soon as it touched the water, it balanced itself like a sturdy boat. The ant used all his strength to climb onto this green island. Phew, he was safe. The dove returned to her branch and watched him until she was sure he was okay. When the ant climbed onto the leaf, his heart was still going thump, thump, thump. The surface of the leaf was warm from the afternoon sun. His wet body began to dry slowly in the heat. The leaf drifted gently, swaying left and right in the calm current. This movement was just like a baby's cradle being rocked to sleep. The ant lay down in the middle of the leaf and watched the sky. Above him, the clouds looked like giant animals made of cotton candy. One looked like a giant elephant, another like a hopping rabbit. He watched the forest passing by from his green ship. The trees looked so different from the water. He saw deer coming to the riverbank to drink. They bowed their heads silently, then pricked up their ears to listen to the forest's secrets. Colorful birds dipped their wings into the water, as if saying hello to the river. The world is so big and so beautiful, the ant thought. The kindness of the dove had created a warmth in his heart that he couldn't describe. Someone he didn't even know had saved him just because they wanted to be kind. Slowly, the current pushed the leaf toward the shore. There was a small, quiet bay where pink flowers bloomed. The leaf touched the soft sand with a tiny thud. The ant knew it was time to leave his ship. When he stepped onto the solid ground, he realized how much he had missed the feeling of the earth. He turned back and looked at the river and the leaf that saved him. "I will never forget you, my white friend," he said to the sky. Then, with his dry feet, he began to walk toward his home, not knowing that the day was only just beginning. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. When the tiny ant reached the pink-flowered bay, the world felt as if it had stopped for a moment. The wet sand beneath his feet was still warm from the sun's long visit. The ant shook himself gently to dry the last drops of water. The sun was sinking lower in the sky, turning into the sweetest shades of orange and purple. The sky looked like a soft painting created by a giant artist. The ant walked toward the famous green moss cushions of the shore. This moss was the softest bed in the whole forest. When you stepped on it, it felt like stepping on a cloud of cotton. The ant stretched out on a piece of moss. His body, now fully dry, felt warm and cozy. He closed his eyes and listened to the forest's afternoon concert. In the distance, the rhythmic sound of a woodpecker, asterisk tap, 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 asterisk, sounded like the heartbeat of the forest. A few crickets were whispering chirp, chirp, as they tuned their instruments for the night. The ant looked up at the giant plane tree again. The white dove was there. She was so high up that she looked like an angel. She was cleaning her feathers one by one with her beak. What a graceful friend, the ant thought. The air in the forest began to cool, and the breeze became more fragrant and fresh. The flowers were closing their petals to protect their nectar for the night. The ant focused on his breath. He felt his tiny chest rising and falling. He inhaled the deep, trustworthy scent of the earth. The forest was like a giant taking a long, slow breath before sleep. Even though he felt sleepy, something inside him told him to stay alert. It was as if nature was whispering a secret to him. But for now, everything was quiet, everything was peaceful, and everything was exactly as it should be. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. As the sun disappeared behind the trees, the colors of the forest became deeper and darker. The greens turned into deep forest hues, and the blues became a midnight indigo. Just then, a different sound came from the depths of the forest. It wasn't the wind, and it wasn't a bird. It was the sound of heavy, rhythmic footsteps on dry leaves. Crackle, crunch, crackle. A hunter had entered the forest. He was walking quietly, trying to hide his presence. He carried a wooden bough in his hand. The forest, however, was a living thing that always knew its secrets. The hunter approached the riverbank. His eyes searched the high branches for birds that were about to fall asleep. Suddenly, he saw a bright white spot on the branch of the plane tree. The white dove was glowing like a lantern under the moonlight. The hunter stopped and held his breath. He slowly took the bough from his back. The wood of the bough made a tiny creak, a sound that reached the ant's sensitive ears. The hunter took an arrow from his bag. The feather on the arrow was not as white as the dove's, but the tip was very sharp. The ant saw the shadow from his mossy bed. He saw the giant boots and the dark cloak. To the ant, this man was as big as a mountain. The hunter knelt down and pulled back the bowstring. The sound of the string stretching, asterisk creak asterisk, made the ant's heart ache. The dove was still there, her head tucked under her wing, dreaming of peace. She had no idea she was in danger. The ant knew he had to do something. Instead of hiding, he rushed forward. For an ant, going near a human was like walking into a giant's trap. But friendship was stronger than fear. "I must reach him," he whispered. "My friend's life depends on me." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. For the ant, that short distance was like crossing a vast desert. Every small pebble was a steep rock to climb. Every dry leaf was a giant obstacle. He could hear his own heart beating pit-pat, pit-pat. Asterisk, he raced across the soil. When he reached the place where the hunter stood, he saw the massive boots. The boots were larger than the ant's whole colony. He looked up. The hunter had the bow fully stretched. The arrow was aimed directly at the beautiful dove. The hunter's fingers were about to release the string. Time seemed to slow down. "Now," the ant said to himself. He began to climb the boot. The leather surface was a difficult hill, but he didn't give up. He dug his tiny claws into the leather, moving higher with every step. When he reached the top of the boot, he saw the hunter's bare ankle. It was the most sensitive spot he could reach. The ant paused for a second. He listened to the silence. The flowing river, the whispering trees, and the hunters held breath, everything focused on this moment. The ant stepped onto the white skin. It was warm and soft beneath his feet. He gathered all his strength and all his loyalty. "You saved my life," he thought of the dove. "Now it is my turn." And the ant bit the hunter's ankle with all the power he had. It wasn't just a bite, it was a promise of protection. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Just as the hunter was about to release the arrow, he felt a sharp sting on his ankle. Because it happened so suddenly, the hunter jumped in surprise. "Ouch!" he cried out, breaking the silence of the forest. His hand shook violently, and his balance was lost. His fingers accidentally let go of the bowstring. But the arrow was no longer aimed at the dove. It flew asterisk whoosh, asterisk, far away from the target, disappearing into the dark trees. It hit a bush with a clack and fell to the ground, hurting no one. The hunter's cry and the sound of the arrow were like a loud bell in the forest. The white dove woke up instantly. She opened her black pearl eyes and looked down. She saw the hunter, the fallen arrow, and the man rubbing his ankle in pain. Asterisk, she understood the danger immediately. Flap, flap, she spread her wings and took to the sky. The wind from her wings shook the leaves of the tree gently. She glided deeper into the forest, toward a branch so high that even the moonlight couldn't reach it. She was safe. Down below, the hunter was still complaining. "How could a tiny thing affect me so much?" he grumbled. The ant had already jumped off the boot and hidden among the moss. The hunter looked around but saw nothing. The silence of the forest fell over him again. Disappointed, the hunter put his bow away. "Today is not my lucky day," he muttered, and walked away with heavy steps. The ant watched the hunter's shadow disappear. His mission was complete. His heart was still beating fast, but this time it was from the great happiness of saving a friend. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. When the hunter was completely gone, the forest returned to its sacred silence. But this time, the silence was more peaceful, more filled with gratitude. After a while, a white shadow glided down from the sky. It was the white dove. She landed softly right next to the moss where the ant was hiding. The sound of her wings closing was the softest melody the ant had ever heard. The dove tilted her head and looked at the ant asterisk. Her eyes were full of thanks and love. "Little friend," she said in her soft, velvety voice, "you saved my life. You fought so bravely against that giant hunter. Your tiny body carried the biggest heart in the world today." Asterisk. The ant waved his antennae to answer her. "If you hadn't pulled me from the river, I wouldn't be here. We are a part of each other now." The two friends stood side by side under the moonlight. A bird with white feathers and an ant with a shimmering black shell, the bond between them was stronger than any chain. Night had fully arrived. The moon was a giant silver plate in the sky. The stars were like diamonds scattered on a dark velvet cloth, blinking slowly, blink, blink. The forest had begun its sleep song. The sound of the river continued, asterisk gurgle, gurgle, asterisk, but was softer now. The dove moved closer, as if to take the ant under her wing. "Come," she said, "it's time to rest. This forest belongs to both of us, and we are safe." The ant curled up in the softest part of the moss. The dove perched on a low branch nearby. Every creature in the forest closed their eyes to dream of this story of friendship. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. And now we have come to the moment when the forest falls into its deepest sleep. Everything is so quiet, everything is so calm. Even the wind lowers its voice as it wanders through the trees. The leaves are no longer rustling, they are just leaning against each other, sleeping. The river water continues to flow with silver sparkles, but it seems tired, too, flowing slower, softer. Imagine the tiny ant. He is lying in his soft soil bed in his nest. He has pulled his legs in toward his belly, and his body is warm. Asterisk, the safe, protective scent of the earth fills his nose. There is an imaginary blanket over him, woven with love, placed with care. The ant is smiling in his dream because of the kindness he did today. His heart is no longer going pit-pat, it is beating in a very calm rhythm. Imagine the white dove. In her nest on the high branch, she has tucked her head into her feathers. Her wings wrap around her body like a warm quilt. The moonlight touches her feathers, but she is not bothered at all. In her dream, she is flying through giant flower gardens with the ant. There are no hunters there, only nectar, only sun, and only friendship. Now, you too feel that you are a part of this forest. Your bed is your nest, and your blanket is your safe wings. Your body is as light as a feather, and your mind is as clear as a blue sky. Your toes are relaxing. Your legs are getting heavy. Your hands and arms are not holding on to anything anymore. They are just falling freely by your side. Your eyelids are so heavy as if tiny grains of sand have been sprinkled on them. So heavy. The forest whispers to you, kindness always wins. Love always protects you, and sleep brings you the most beautiful dreams. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Slowly let it out through your mouth. Hush, hush, asterisk, asterisk. Let the world stay outside. You get lost in this beautiful tale inside. The tiny ant is sleeping. The white dove is sleeping. The forest is sleeping. Now it is your turn. Good night, sweet child. Good night, little hero. Sleep tight, dream sweet. Hush,